Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy, but America's agricultural landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertisement campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. From the producers who make your food, to the store where you buy the final product, and everything in between. This is Real Ag. Now, here's your host, Kyle Bauer.
Tree nurseries are a great supplier and sources of obtaining and learning about the tree and plant systems in Kansas. But what types of trees and other plants are available in the area, and which ones will grow the best? We'll talk to a few of the local tree and plant nurseries here in Kansas and a closer look at tree nurseries on this episode of Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
Are there a certain number of plants or trees you have to keep in stock?
Not really. There's ones that sell a lot better than others. Red Point maples are always really good sellers. Taylor junipers. The bread and butter items we grow on the location here, and then the hard to get stuff that we're not really very qualified at growing, we'll bring them in. We got a truck coming from Independence, Missouri today that'll be unloading. Hopefully it might be unloaded right now, and then we get some out of Oklahoma. We get some out of some more out of Missouri, and so we grow the stuff that we can grow easy and sells good, and then bring the rest of the material in.
Yeah, there's definitely some more popular items that we sell more of. I mean, you got to have your staples with the crab apples and your shade trees like a Red Point maple. I mean, maples are really popular because they have fall color. As far as shrubs go, you got to have your boxwoods and your yews, and some of your dwarf spireas are probably your most popular, but we always have those around.
We're a commercial landscape company, and so we primarily grow for what we use in our landscape designs. And tree-wise, we have about 30 trees that we grow ourselves in our nursery here. We also grow or have about 50 to 60 varieties of shrubs that we maintain and grow for our commercial use there.
Do you use certain chemicals?
Very little. If anything, we might use a drench as a systemic to make sure we don't have insects, but mostly we use organic fertilizer, we use worm casings, and very little chemical or pest control unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah, just tried and true. The good old chemicals are outlawed now, and so you can't use those, and so they've got some different formulations. We're real lucky to have a maintenance division that already treats bagworms and borers, and so we kind of lean on those guys to say what's the newest trendy chemical that works best, and they are up to speed on it, which one can be properly done with a certified pesticide guy. And so we certify our pest guys every year, and so they're putting it on the right increment, and they're putting it on with the safety gloves and the safety mask, but those guys are all trained. So usually we have our maintenance division guys that are already trained. They come out and put those chemicals on for us.
Borers have become a problem, so we chemically treat for borers. We spray for that. We actually do through our drip irrigation, we chemically treat that so the tree takes it up systemically. Of course, we also use Roundup to control weeds and those unwanted pests like that. But that's with the tree fields. That's primarily it. A little bit of fertilizer, but not a whole lot.
What are worm castings?
The worm castings are actually the worms. It's like their manure, and yeah, we use a lot of those.
How long does it take to grow a tree before it can be sold?
Generally, between 4 and 5 years is kind of, what we do. A good sized tree, we measure by diameter, and I think the most popular size would be a 2.5 inch diameter, and usually they're about 10 to 12 feet tall.
We're actually harvesting trees in our new fields here in the second and third year. They're growing really fast. The second year they're smaller, but by the third year we're seeing good enough growth that we're able to harvest them at that point. We plant them as a 5 to 6 foot tall whip, and which is just a stick basically, and but they grow fairly quickly. These trees right here that we're standing next to have been here for 2 years, and you know, they would have been, like I say, 5 or 6 feet tall 2 years ago when we planted them. So,
Would people have to use anything after a tree is transplanted?
We would hope not. Generally, if you have a tree that you take good care of, you give it adequate water, you make sure it's staked and you don't weed eat around it and so forth. As long as you take good care of it, you don't have to use any products, and it should be healthy and good to go.
Not really. We do recommend a product we call Mike. And Mike, what it does, it gives you an extra 4-year warranty on your tree. And it's a mycorrhizum that gets the mycorrhizums in the ball going and helps the tree survive a little bit better. And so that also, we get a 1-year warranty on a tree. That gives you an additional 4 years if you put it in with the tree. So it's really I always say you get a set of Ginsu knives with it after that, because it sounds too good to be true, but it's cost about $10 to put that in the tree. And so for an extra 4 years of warranty, I kind of recommend a Mike. If you got real clay soil, we recommend some cottonwood compost to kind of loosen the soil up to give the tree a running start. And what you got to remember about a B&B tree, when you dig it, you're cutting off about 50% of the roots. And so it's going to be in shock for a couple of years until it gets those new roots established and going. So watering is important in the summertime, putting a water bag on them in the summertime to make sure you get proper watering. We recommend fall planting of trees, because a tree planted in the fall will continue to grow all winter long. And so when the spring comes, it'll bust off. By the time the hot summer gets here, you'll have a good established tree. But everybody says, oh, guys, the ground's frozen, it's too cold. You can plant trees clear up to November. We've even done it at Thanksgiving before. So we recommend fall planting.
Do you locate the best location for where I am putting a tree in?
Can I do that for you? Oh yes, definitely. We have 3 horticulturists on staff here. We have ag education, and Lindy's been with Blueville for about 15 years. So we all are very knowledgeable, and we can definitely tell you what kind of tree you need.
Can you explain the zone system?
Well, there's hardiness zones. They map out basically the whole entire United States, and of course Kansas is mapped out into different zones as well. So the higher the zone number-wise is usually the least hardy for our area. So they have a temperature, the lowest point for an extended certain amount of time that a plant can actually survive. So Kansas used to be a zone 5, but we're now a zone 6.
What type of irrigation system do you use?
Currently, we have several different systems in play. When you go out to the tree fields where the trees are growing, they have a drip irrigation. So they have these long hoses with perforated holes in them, and they lay those out. Generally, they do that for the first couple years to get them established, and after that, they don't need to have any extra watering. As far as container trees, we have a drip irrigation where each tree has a little emitter placed in each container. And then we have a lot of people that hold a hose, and we do a lot of hand watering.
Well, the first year on irrigation, we put the black tube, and we can take a picture of that a little later. It's a black tube that has a emitter every foot. So our trees that are planted as whips, which we got coming from Oregon, they'll have that black tube on there until we get our first dig. So 2 years after we plant it, we'll dig, and so we pull the irrigation out of there at that time, but we give them that additional irrigation that first couple years to get them started. And then we run on 6 wells at Blueville, and so we alternate those wells. Most of our wells are 60 feet down, and so we alternate the wells. So we use 6 wells on Blueville and alternate them and switch them off and on so that we can do it. And actually, we've got to report to the state every year of how much well water we use. So each one of them has a meter on them, and we turn that into the state, and it costs us $400 a year to use God's water. But the state wants to keep track of how much water uses do, so we have meters on each one and certified meter from the state that we got to turn in that every year. And we use $2 or 3 million gallons of water a year. So
Yes, we have a well here on the nursery that we were able to utilize to water the trees. We use drip irrigation, basically lines that run down the tree rows that concentrates the water at the trunk of the tree. And so when they're young, the first year or two we irrigate them. The second, third year, not as much. By the fourth or fifth year, we hardly ever irrigate unless it's extremely dry.
Where is the water source from?
We have 5 wells, and we currently just hooked up to the Manhattan water as well. So we have several different sources we use.
Do you ship year-round?
We do all year long. There's no rule that says you can't plant. As long as you can dig a hole and the ground's not frozen, you can plant. Although I caution people in the heat of the summer to actually plant trees, because they need to make sure that they're on the watering and take care of them. So it's a lot easier to get a tree established in the spring and fall.
Are there any predators or anything that you would need to be concerned about?
well, the predator that we have in Kansas is called the deer and the white-tailed deer. And so in August, we have tree guards on all of our trees. The rut was really bad this year. The rut usually happens in August, and the rut is getting the fuzz off of the horn so they can show off to the does for mating season. And it was hot in August, and so the rut was really, really bad this year. And so they'll come and hit our trees, which sometimes they'll rut it all the way around. Sometimes they'll just put a scar in there, and so you got to wait a couple years to sell that tree, and sometimes they just destroy the tree. And so once they get that fuzz off, and then during mating season, which happens in November, they want to show off. And so they again come in with their horns and hit the trees. And so you got a kind of a double dip on deers coming. We can shoot deers on Blueville all year long, but you got to let everybody else in America shoot them too, because it becomes a public hunting ground at that time. So we really make the decision not to shoot deer. We get people coming in and want a deer-scarred tree, and we'll sell it to them because it's not damaged unless it goes all the way around the tree and cuts off the circulation. So deer's a problem. Bagworms are always a problem in our upright junipers, like the ones we got behind us. Bagworms will get on the tree about May, June. They start coming. You got to get them when they're small. If you miss one, you get 10,000 ones coming out of that little bag. So we always got to watch for bagworms on upright junipers, and so we do a lot of it. Once you get them kind of controlled, but you can't control the cedars in the wild. A cedar tree will get bagworms all over it and still live, but it'll actually kill an upright juniper.
Yes, the boars will attack the trees when they're young, and so we recommend to our customers for about the first 5 years they treat for the boars, and that will, once they get past that initial transplant shock stage, then they're healthy enough to withstand that. A lot of people have heard of the emerald ash borer that's moving its way across the state. We haven't had that here yet, but it's coming, and it'll be here this year or a couple years from now. A borer is an insect that bores a hole in the tree and eats on the wood and damages the inner tissue of the structure of the tree. And on a small tree, it can do enough damage to where it actually will essentially girdle the trunk to where the flow is not able to go up and down and can kill the tree.
What types of trees do you offer?
Well, currently we grow red point maples, different types of elms. I'm trying to think what else we have out there. Evergreens have become more and more popular, so we have a lot of blue spruce and Black Hill spruce. It's just some different arrangements. I don't know exactly every variety out there. That's why we need Keith.
Are there government regulations with growing in the state of Kansas?
We have periodically people coming to inspect the trees, and they look for disease and insects.
Not a whole lot. They used to do nursery inspections. They don't really do that anymore. There are some shrubs and trees that we're not allowed to plant, things that are noxious weed type of things and stuff. But they do regulate the if we're transporting out of state and stuff like that. But we don't do that, so that's not a concern for us.
How do inspections work?
I wouldn't say there's new rules. I think that there's always a different insect or a different disease that kind of crops up that you haven't seen in the past. For instance, Japanese beetles that used to be in this area, and now we have to watch for them. And if they see it, they tell us, and we'll isolate it or take care of it. We've never had any big problems in the past.
Are there certain plants that you cannot grow or are not allowed to grow in this area?
Well, every once in a while they get on a noxious weed. So right now, noxious weed, noxious tree. The emerald ash borer is a major concern, and that actually came in from firewood from Colorado. So if you've been to Colorado, that emerald ash borer and also the pine nematode is killing all the pines in Colorado. The spruces they're not affecting. So that came in on firewood from Colorado originally, and so we're not allowed to sell ash in this area because that emerald ash borer is they'll actually strip all the leaves off of the tree, and so we're not allowed to sell ash anymore. We're still selling Austrian pines. You can still treat it. The Austrian pine is like cholesterol of the pine, and so what it does is they sting the end of the needle, and then it doesn't allow the xylem and phloem to go up in the tree, so it clogs up your system, and that's why you see pines dying on the end all the way through. So Austrian pines are the ones affected. Scotch pines are almost all gone. We grow one called Bosnian pine at Blueville, and Bosnian pine is one that seems to be resistant to that type. But I can tell you on the end bath up here, they've got Austrian pines on that project. And so if we get the bid, we're going to recommend they plant a different kind of pine than Austrian, because the architect's probably from someplace else. And so we'll talk to them about, hey, this isn't a very good pine for this region. We've had this, and so hopefully we can get it changed. But you can't change it before you get the job.
Why is it important to buy plants from local nurseries?
Buy local. Well, we like local economy, local property taxes, local sales taxes. Those are all infrastructure. Property tax, sales tax pays for our roads, and that's one concern about when you buy from Amazon. You say, hey, I save on sales tax. Well, you save on sales tax, but they also aren't contributing to the infrastructure of the community. And somebody's got to pay for the potholes in the road, and that's through sales tax. And if you're not collecting as much sales tax, then your property taxes will have to go up, because they got to get the revenue somewhere. So you get the property taxes so high, then people don't live in the communities because the property taxes are so high. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We really need to get the internet sales tax addressed, so where the product is shipped, it goes back to the community.
Buying local, you want to buy trees that are adapted to the climate, to the the varieties, to not only temperature but our soils. Temperature is a big problem, but really soil, especially in our area, our soil tends to be a higher pH, and we deal with a lot of rocky soils and stuff. There are trees that are better adapted to our situations. If you go even 100 miles away, it can be a totally different environment, and trees that do well there may not do well here. So buying from a local source is important.
What are the best trees to plant?
My favorite shade tree right now is called the red point maple. I love it because it has amazing red fall color. It has a really strong central leader, and it grows quickly. And I haven't seen that it has a lot of broken branches or damage when we have high winds or ice storms. Love that plant. I think I put it on every design I do. As far as a flowering tree, I love the Royal Raindrops crabapple. It's another really hardy one. It gives you some beautiful spring flowers, and then it has that maroon foliage. So those are probably my two favorites.
Probably the number one tree our customers like is autumn blaze maple. It's a nice maple tree that has a beautiful fall color. They're a nice tree. We plant a lot of those. I like sawtooth and heritage oaks. They're a nice stately oak tree. Elms have really made a big comeback. The American elms and Chinese elm is a tree that's a beautiful tree. In Kansas, people think of a Chinese elm as a junk tree. The Chinese elm is actually a beautiful tree. The Siberian elm is what most native Kansans think of as a Chinese elm, but they're actually really nice trees. So we have a lot of elms, and when we put them on plans, we have to educate people that that's actually a really nice tree. And with the boars and stuff, there's some trees like ash that we're no longer planting because of the boar problems and stuff. It doesn't make sense to plant a tree that is going to be a problem. Pine trees used to be a big market in our area, and with the diseases and stuff, we no longer do pine trees.
Is there a tree that you no longer see that you wish was back?
Well, I always liked the ornamental pears. The Bradford pear was the original one. There's Cleveland Select and Red Spires, and it's a really pretty tree because it gets white blooms on it in the spring before it gets leaves on it. But the offshoot of that is the birds like to pick the seeds off of there and mess up your sidewalk. And so people say, well, I want that pear tree, but I don't want the messiness of the sidewalk on my sidewalk. And I can't blame them, but pears are really a good tree that has been tried and true for many years, and we sell a few of them, but we don't sell like we used to. There's always new trees being invented, and Blueville we've got 2 trees in the marketplace right now that we've invented. One's a cotton candy redbud. It's a redbud. It has a pink bottom that opens white, and John Show 10 years ago, 3 miles west of the nursery, found that tree for me. So we've introduced that into the marketplace, and it's trademarked with Blueville. And then we got one called Skinny Blue Jeans that we can take some shots of. It's a columnar black hill spruce, and that's growing in Oregon for me right now. So we continue. We got about 8 more trees in the pipeline that we're going to introduce. And so there's constantly trees being introduced into the marketplace that are new and improved. Used to be they're just old red maple. Old red maples didn't hold off. And then it came out with autumn blaze. So autumn blaze is a cross between a red maple and a silver maple. So you get red fall color with fast growth, but they grow too fast. And so that red point's kind of taken over for the red maple. But everybody likes red maples. There's lots of new oaks. And a lot of that you improve the tree by having a better understock on it. So the old northern red oak is tried and true. We grafted onto a swamp white oak, which is a really good root system. So you're constantly also improving the varieties of trees with a better root system. You have a solid root system that's tried and true onto a really good tree, you're going to have a superior tree. So a lot of that. Right now I'm grafting eastern red cedar onto Hetsai, and Hetsai has been an understock that actually my dad did these masters on it in 1958. So it's been around a long time. So we're grafting an eastern red cedar that has a poor root system onto a Hetsai, and an eastern red cedar is a Kansas tree. And everybody needs a windbreak in Kansas. And so we think with a better root system onto an eastern red cedar, we're going to have a really good tree.
What do you do for continuing education?
Well, for the new varieties, I've spent a lot of time thinking up a name of a new variety. So cotton candy redbud was developed because it looks like cotton candy you get at the fair, till they added that blue in there. So cotton candy normally was pink and white. And so you name that tree according to a feature on a tree. The Skinny Blue Jeans has a blue needle, and it's a skinny tree. And then we got another one right beside this wide, and my wife and I were trying to figure out a wide name. And we finally came up, we're gonna call that one Blue Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt's a big storm. So you kind of come up with a name, and that's how you do your marketing on the tree. And then the botanical name is what I do, like in the common names the botanical name has John Show in the thing. So we think of the old family farms you bought, and you always call it the family farm you bought from it, even though you own it, and we do the same thing on trees. So we're honoring John Show's family in the botanical name. So the continuing education is all the new trees that come out, and basically through that marketing plan, you have new and improved trees that are better, and that's how you market it. And it's a feature of the tree, or it's a rootstock of the tree, and so you're constantly educating the public. Everybody wants an eastern red cedar, but how about an eastern red cedar with a good root system on it that you can dig and transplant? And so that's what you're constantly doing. You're not reinventing the wheel, you're improving on a product that you currently have.
The next time you're thinking about landscaping your property, we hope you take a look at some of the local nurseries in your area for their varieties of trees and other plants, as well as their expertise in helping you select and possibly maintaining the look of your yard. Once again, if you want to check out this and more episodes of Real Ag, go to SmokyHillsTV.org. For the Real Ag crew, I'm Kyle Bauer, and this has been Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.